All right, Chris, say hello to your adoring public.
Hello to your adoring public.
Oh, I recognize those shorts.
Yes,
I'm glad they're getting some use. They don't fit my fat ass.
it really fit mine.
So, why did we bring you here tonight? For science, for glory.
For the Emperor.
Yeah, for the Emperor. Palpatine?
Sure.
But
I am the Senate. Senate who?
Yeah.
Senate Skywalker.
We figured we would actually do a little bit of recording tonight while we were working on the Miata.
Mm-hmm.
Not that we would have planned ahead that there's any kind of a time lapse of the work that we've already done, but yeah, we're gonna eat some pizza.
Prepared? Are you kidding?
Right.
Us?
We're gonna eat some pizza, drink some Coca-Cola, and then wrench. And you can maybe kind of see behind me, there's an engine. We'll get it in place. It'll be in another shot. There'll be a cut. This is gonna look great. There'll be some free, copyright-free music that we'll put on this thing.
Oh,
right?
yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right, let's get to it. See, Chris? This is what we call a 180 shot. 180 degrees opposite of where we were beforehand. Which would mean something. Wait, are you eating your food with your car gloves on?
Yes.
Is this a bit of car or is this a bit of pizza?
That's a bit of pizza.
Thank God. We're just like...
It's all char. Carbohydrates, hydrocarbons, same difference.
Right, yeah, it's just fiber, right? By the way, we're not sponsored by Domino's, but
We sure should eat it.
I was gonna say we wouldn't be opposed. Rundown. Sit rep. Where are we at?
Okay, so we need to remove the rest of the components off the engine here.
Okay.
Put them onto the engine that's actually over on the stand. Which includes much of nothing aside from the parts we find. I can't tell whether that's a knock sensor or an idiot sensor, but it's already on the block.
If I put it on there, it's an idiot sensor.
Well, knock sensors, they may have been big in that time, because this was obviously a long time ago when it came to EFI.
Yeah, 1991, Mazda Miata.
So, a lot of the components are much bigger, but also much simpler. If I recall correctly, I think this uses, I know the 91 240SX, the standard KA24, came with a single wire running to the O2 sensor. Not 3 wires, not 2 wires, 1 wire.
One wire.
A single wire. It ends up that apparently the other 2 wires that run to the O2 sensors on newer vehicles, not very new, but newer, is actually to heat them up.
Cool.
Because they don't operate unless they're heated up. So they are actually heated up so that you can more quickly read the gas content in your exhaust. Problem with a cold air intake on this generation of Miata, and I think
Do you want to preface why we were talking about it? So, like, what we were talking about is, I said, there are guys who get hyper-fixated on doing a particular thing. Like, there's a video we were talking
almost
about.
a manic obsession.
Right. There's a guy who's doing a Miata, but he's doing like a racing car build of Miata, right? Because he wants it to be a sports car. But you get hyper-fixated, like he's hyper-fixated on making it supercharged, right? So he wants to have and not just any supercharger, it's a very specific type of supercharger, but he's hyper-fixated on putting a supercharger in his Miata, and he puts it in, and it doesn't work, and then it doesn't work, and then he breaks it, and then it really doesn't work, and then he fixes it, and it finally works, but it doesn't have the power output that he was expecting. And so, like, car guys have this, like, total obsession with, like, what they want to do with the vehicle, and I was telling him that my obsession is that I think that a cold air intake would look really cool on the Miata. Like, I know that it wouldn't necessarily add the performance boost. Even if it did anything, it would only be a couple horsepower, maybe. But they look cool.
They look cool. They do sound a little better, usually because you replace a lot of the resonance dampening that's in a vehicle already. Most vehicles are actually designed to run quieter, because there's a noise problem, especially in Japan. Japanese vehicles have a big thing with noise pollution, because Japan has a big issue with noise pollution, so a lot of the vehicles are very, very quiet. If you ever hear a stock Skyline, one of the new R35s, the new GTRs, and you hear the thing rev, you won't hear it rev. It's quiet. It's like silent. Okay, so, big deal is, the thing stopping us from doing any kind of cold air intake is this thing right here. This is an old style of mass airflow sensor, vane style. How it actually measures air coming in is it actually has a little kind of impeller inside of here, and as air passes in front of it, it spins. It will then register that and send the signal to the main brain of the computer, the ECU, and the ECU will kind of calculate exactly how much air is going into the engine. There's a few other calculations going on as well. The problem is this entire thing is the whole of the mass airflow sensor.
Of course.
On newer, even newer Miatas, I think when they switched over to the 1.8 engine, they actually replaced this with a smaller ring that has a burner element inside of it.
Right.
A small little burner. And so when the element is lit, it has a charge applied to it, and based upon the temperature of the element, is a certain resistance to it. A certain resistance based on temperature, and that's an actual direct correlation.
Right.
As you pass more air in front of that little element, it will cool it off, changing the resistance value, and that's how the sensor measures.
But let's talk about some of the dummy engineering reasons why it doesn't work. So with the cold air intake, let's point out something really important here. What is right next to, so if we change this out and we do a cold air intake, what is right next to where the cold air is going to be coming?
It's the exhaust manifold.
What is the exhaust manifold? So you see what this is? This is where all of the heat and gas of the engine comes out. You know, this is what heads towards your muffler.
If I recall
and you can
correctly,
see
the
where
temperature of that exhaust manifold is going to be somewhere around 1200 degrees.
Right.
What it actually draws from is, you see this little tube on the backside right here?
Right.
It'll actually snorkel air. A lot of them snorkel air out of the, this one I think actually just pops off right here by itself.
But that's where it pulls.
But a lot of them pull air actually out of the fender.
So tell me something though. But why couldn't we just saw that off and put on the cold air intake right there?
That'd be the dumbest thing I've ever heard of.
But you're missing a certain point, and that point is they look freaking cool. What I'm gonna say though is that we got to get this to run before we worry about any of that crap, right?
Yeah.
Yes, priority. Because if this thing does not run, what we will do is we will scrap the mother effort and get our money back.
Or just sell it to somebody else who actually knows what they're doing.
Yeah, somebody.
Hey, look, it's ready for an LS swap. Go ahead.
So what are we working on right now?
I'm taking the tensioner off of the AC.
The tensioner, okay.
Yeah, tensioner bolt.
All right, so just for everybody at home, why don't you point out what is the AC down there?
This is your traditional air conditioning compressor.
Man, it's dark down there.
Yeah, this is a compressor. It compresses. It's actually got a really cool style of pump inside of there. I could not begin to visualize what the thing looks like. There's these multiple pistons that are on this kind of ramped surface, and the pistons actually kind of free float on the ramped surface and go up and down like this in a helical pattern. And you have an opening and a closing. The reason they do that is so they can actually angle the depth of the pistons dynamically. So they can change. What it does is it actually regulates the pressure that's inside of the lines, so it doesn't achieve some kind of max pressure that the pump can put out, but achieves a very specific kind of pressure range that makes the whole system work. Because what you're doing is you're taking a material which is close to its boiling point, and you are compressing it until it becomes a fluid, super hot, and then you run it and run in front of a radiator, run it in a radiator so that it cools off, and then you put it into a vessel which has to slowly release out, which has a pressure drop in it, and that causes it to expand into a gas. That is called phase change cooling, because you're changing the phase of the material
From a liquid to a gas.
Yes. But yes, that's how it worked. The first air conditioning that was ever used was used to dehydrate. It's actually used to dehydrate a space. It actually had nothing to do with cooling. It was there specifically, I think it was in Massachusetts, to dehydrate a paper mill or a paper plant because the paper was getting so moist that they couldn't work with it.
Right.
So they were like, we have to do something. I think it was also technically a window unit, just not the one you're thinking of. Flipping wire, so I can't hang it on anything, and if I just prop it up there, it's certainly going to fall.
Which would be bad.
Which is going to be bad.
I mean, it's not as bad as the car falling on you, but still.
Well, it'd damage it, and then you'd have an air conditioning that doesn't work, and you'd have to live in an environment and a geography where it's like 110 degrees in the summer.
Satan's ball sack.
Yeah. Well, kind of where the taint meets the ball sack.
Yeah. The hot pocket, as they say.
You'd have to live in that environment, and you'd have no AC.
But you can drop the top on this, which is fine until you're stuck in traffic or the rain comes down.
Well, that's fine still, but the problem is the fact that now that you've dropped the top, now you're in direct sunlight.
So what are you dropping right now? The AC compressor?
Yeah, the compressor.
Yeah, we're still working on the compressor.
Well, see, the thing is that I'm not going to remove the compressor from the system. So this compressor is just going to be laying off of the engine. So that when we lift it out, it's just going to be as disattached as it needs to be to pull the engine out. That way, all we need is these 4 bolts to put it back together. However,
Hey, Chris.
Why not? Yes.
What's the matter, compressor?
Kill me.
Oh, he's so tired of my jokes. But in fairness, I'm tired of his puns. So, you know, we're like a bitter old married couple. And definitely like that because we don't have sex.
Bottom of that oil pan, is that honeycombed or is it just ribbed?
It's ribbed.
Okay, make sure.
Ribbed for our pleasure.
Well, and cooling.
Yeah.
You cool however you can. These have the weirdest. They have the oil pans on these are aluminum. I'm used to oil pans on this generation of like Japanese vehicle to be steel. Usually thin steel, very thin steel, but steel.
Don't mind me, I'm just the impartial videographer.
Mm-hmm. Ignore me.
I want something. So give us the last shot, like you're seeing your life flash before your eyes. Look at the camera and give the in the arms of the angels, just in case the car collapses on you and this turns into like.
It's a living.
In the arms of the angel.
On a very, very special episode of Chrisco Presents.
Yeah.
He was so young. I just noticed
I
something.
guess this is technically a.
With your beard and your hair, you've got a lot of Ganondorf going on right now. Except you don't have his big nose.
Well, I do have a big nose, just not that big of a nose.
Right, not that big of a nose.
Yeah. I have German big nose, not Arabic big nose.
That's right. Gerudo. There were no similes in The Legend of Zelda at all.
Not at all.
Not at all. What's the advantage of a dual wishbone?
Double wishbone is slightly heavier than a McPherson strut, more expensive than a McPherson strut to manufacture, but it puts the center of weight lower on the vehicle. McPherson strut usually has to put more of its components higher up, which makes it a little bit more top heavy, the suspension anyway.
I gotcha. More economical bounce, go vroom vroom.
Kind of.
All right, let's get back to work. I mean, I need to get back to work. You're obviously working and I'm watching. All right, so guys, we are wrapping up for the day. In fact, we're jacking the car back up so we can pull out the jack stands that's holding it up right now. But where did we finish today? So we weren't able to get the starter off,
No.
but we were able to get the AC compressor loose. We just got to finish taking that off next time.
Yeah.
And then what we will do is we'll get the engine hoist that you can kind of see in the background there. We'll start supporting the engine, then we'll take the, and then we'll finally be able to cherry pick out the old engine. And once we get the AC and the starter and then the other components that we've forgotten about onto the new engine that you see right here behind me, then the fun part of getting, oh, I forgot, we have to disconnect the transmission. So before we pull out the old engine, we got to disconnect it from the transmission.
Yep, which is going to take the bolts off of the, I still don't remember what the name is, the torque plate?
Yeah.
I don't remember what it's called.
Right.
No, torque plate's something else completely. But pretty much what connects the rotating part of the engine to the rotating part of the transmission.
Yeah.
And we take the bolts off of the static part of the engine that attaches to the static part of the transmission.
Right. But then, theoretically, once we get the engine in, then it's a matter of doing new fluids.
Yep.
Got to retime it, right?
Yep.
And what am I forgetting?
Oh, sorry. No, I take that back. We don't have to retime it.
Oh, we don't?
No, sorry, time.
Oh, right, of course. Okay, great. Even better. Because timing an engine is a giant pain in the ass. But then it'll be like, get the sucker cranked and see if it runs.
Yeah.
So, you want to say goodbye to our friends at home?
Goodbye, friends at home.
See you next time on Bodgin It.